Despite his plea of innocence, Tony Kemp copped a 3-match suspension for this tackle on the Cronulla fullback. However, in new evidence to hand, an amateur video shot by a Sharks supporter may cast a different light on the case.
He'd been at the ground with his father. His father had videoed the match, and it was taken from a vastly different angle.
According to Knight's president Max Fox, the video must be established as fresh evidence before the appeal can be heard. Pending this, an expert in human physiology, Newcastle professor Saxon White, has viewed the incident as a spinal reflex action, and his evidence will be called as part of an appeal. Kemp's selection in Sunday's team to play the Raiders is seen as a confident move, as there have been no successful appeals to the judiciary for more than 16 years. The sponsorships were announced by Bilo supermarket boss Richard Owens, a self-confessed opera buff. In association with the Australian Opera and the Hunter Orchestra, 3 performances of Verdi's La Traviata will be performed at the Civic Theatre. The opera will feature principal artists of the Australian and the Royal Opera. At something like $150,000 to set up, organisers are hoping for a confident response from Newcastle patrons. The performances in September will benefit the Kidney Foundation. Also announced today a $7,000 sponsorship for the ARIA Awards. Designed to encourage young singers, the award offers a scholarship to study overseas.
It is true that I'm a regular visitor, as are my ministerial colleagues, to the... It is an area that's had, I think it's fair to say...
Will this be on this event? Do we, Steve? Yeah. We're not thinking it's one later. It's a sweet short video.
The village is spread out over 1 acre and is one of the first hospitals in the state to be architecturally designed for caring for aged patients. The village already has its full quota of 40 patients, with hundreds waiting to be assessed to enter the home. The staff of 35 cater for those who can no longer care for themselves in their own homes, but are above being bedridden in a hospital. The 40 patients require care 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and the aim of the hospital is to either offer a lengthy period of convalescence or provide people with 3 stable meals a day and care that will help them get back on the rails and return to their own homes. The village is located right next door to the Woy Woy Hospital, a facility that offers hydrotherapy pools, physiotherapy and counselling services. The village has different wards dedicated to organisations that have donated large amounts of funds to make the hospital become a reality. With the government not building new aged care facilities, the community-based funding appears to be the way of the future. Darren Curtis for NBN News.
After scoring a brilliant win over Hobart last weekend, the Newcastle Falcons hit the road for the Doomsday Double. Tonight in Western Australia they take on the Perth Wildcats and then travel to Adelaide to do battle with the 36ers tomorrow night. With 1 win from 6 matches so far this season, coach Ken Cole would be happy to split the round trip 1-1, but even that is a tall assignment. Cole is going into the 2 matches with a settled starting 5 in Everett, Johnson, Jones, Turner and Sean Dennis, and these players will provide the nucleus of a Falcons resurgent in the NBL. There is basketball in Newcastle this weekend at the stadium when the Kennard Hunters clash with the Dandenong Rangers, and the boys from Newcastle will be keen to make it 2 from 2 in the South Eastern Basketball League. With new import Charles Hawthorne in the lineup, the Hunters should prove too good for the Victorians. Newcastle Australs bounced back last weekend with a 3-0 belting of Penrith, and coach Willie Gallagher will be pleased if the form continues in the away match against Canterbury this weekend. Kevin Shell has begun to dominate the midfield, and Kiwi Mark Elrick proved last week that he is going to be a thorn for opposing defences. Australs scored 2 convincing wins over Canterbury last season and will want to do the same again this season. In local rugby league this weekend, Lakes United clash with Curry tonight, Maitland meet Western Suburbs and Central play Waratah tomorrow, and then on Sunday, Cessnock do battle with North Nelson Bay at the Bay, and South Newcastle are up against Toronto.
According to the Hunter Water Board, scenes like this are a thing of the past. With the new ocean outfall, highly screened effluent will be taken beyond the breakers and deposited more than 1 kilometre out to sea. Nick Greiner in Newcastle for the launch praised the work of the Hunter Water Board. He said the board handled the thorny issue of sewage disposal in a practical and sensitive manner.
It's made decisions that are seen as tough, seen as unpopular, but I think which are now seen, and certainly should be seen, as being right.
Initial trials run by the Water Board claim the new outfall has dramatically improved water quality at Burwood Beach. What the board fails to mention, however, is that tests were made last Wednesday during a constant westerly wind. Nick Greiner, keen to catch the Green vote, says he understands why people are worried about Newcastle beaches, but says the Water Board must work to a budget.
But it's one thing to complain about the environmental quality, that's a good thing to do. Those same people have got to be prepared to pay for it.
Construction on stage 2 and 3 of the treatment works, a new pumping station and a secondary treatment plant, is expected to be completed by 1992. Peter Ryan reporting for NBN News.
An appeal to raise $70,000 to restore the rose window in the west wall of the cathedral was launched early this year. The Dean's office says the National Trust was approached in a bid to make appeal donations tax deductible, but nothing was heard back, and so far only $32,000 has been raised. A spokesman for the National Trust said the application could still be waiting in a queue for approval. In the meantime, a team of 5 has been working to restore the 17 panes that make up what's considered to be one of the greatest treasures of the cathedral and of Newcastle.
A Capacity House gave a rousing reception to both fighters as they entered the ring for the scheduled 12-round contest, and Mike Harris must have thought he was at home as the Sydney Welsh Choir led their country's national anthem. When the boys got down to business, it was Harris who was ducking and weaving, making it difficult for Waters to find the mark. But when the champion did, it was to great effect. Referee Trevor Christian warned Harris in the 3rd round for the use of his head, but it was pretty hard for a fighter who had 39 previous bouts to his credit to change a style he has had for years. By the end of the 6th, Waters was in front on points. The 2 fighters were pretty even in the 7th, and then the fireworks started. Waters cut loose on the Welshman in the 8th round with a flurry of lefts and rights, and Harris was in a little bit of trouble. Waters kept up the relentless attack as his opponent did everything to cover up. And as the bell sounded, Harris turned his back to Waters, and the kid from Kulnura got a shot in after the bell. With that, the referee stopped the fight, and Waters had retained his Commonwealth title. Even for the champion, who was happy to hang on to the belt, it was a disappointing way for the fight to end.
No, mate, you never want to fight till finish, controversially, but I knew I was starting to get on top, and I made a couple of more rounds, and, well, he would have probably ended up on his back. So, it's probably lucky for him, but, a couple of more rounds would have been nice to me in my preparation, but I had a good workout tonight, and I'm very happy the way it went.
Did you expect him to be the terrier that he was?
Well, mate, I expected him to be very, very awkward, and he was. He might not have looked from outside, but inside he was, he was awkward to hit. He just slipped his head away, very, very stylish, and mate, I needed that sort of a workout, and it was a good workout for me in a prelude to my world title.
His pre-fight plan was to make you swing and miss, and he did that pretty successfully for the first 7 rounds.
Well, mate, he made me miss a few times. The jab was the punch that sort of started to break his defences down, and everything comes off the jab, and I just knew if I stuck to my fight plan now, everything would work as I wanted it to.
Darren Van Horn, look out.
Well, Mike, you know, that's the thing I've been training for the last 9 years for, and whenever Darren Van Horn steps in the ring with me, well, that's the end of his title reign.
Go get him.
Thanks very much, Mike.
For the likeable Welshman, Mike Harris, he felt he was a little hard done by.
I wasn't hurt by any means, it's just that I did take them. If they were as damaging as they looked, I don't think I would have been on my feet, you know. It's very disappointing there, I really, really don't understand it. You know, to come all this way up for a Commonwealth title fight and treat it as an amateur 3-round bout, it don't make sense.
Would there be any chance of you getting a rematch with Troy?
I really don't. Well, I would love to, but I don't think it's in Troy's plans. I honestly don't think, you know, the way boxing is, they go in for a world title. I really don't think they'll take any more risks. Next time I'll be a lot better, a lot more. Well, I was prepared for the fight, a lot more prepared in my fight plan. But all the best to Troy, you know, I wish him all the best. If it was the other way around, you know, I'd be satisfied to win in that way, you know, everyone is. As long as they win, that's the main thing. But just a bit disappointed, not only for me, but for the Australian public. I'm sure they would like to see him go 12 rounds.
Yeah, mate, you've made a lot of friends here on the Central Coast. You've had 40 fights now. You've probably fought the biggest fight of your career tonight in the Commonwealth title bout. What's the plans for Mike Harris from here on in?
Well, as I told you earlier, I've delayed the British title fight to come out here. I'll go back now. I'll go down a step, fight for the British title. I'll be proud to win the British title. And I'll come again. You know, maybe not for the Commonwealth, but for the European. If I get a chance to come over here again, I certainly will. I won't let the referee dishearten me, you know. I'm a professional man, I'll travel the world again. The people are great, everyone's great over here, and I've enjoyed myself. It's amazing.
Is there any truth in the rumour that you'll send for the Sydney Welsh Choir to sing the national anthem at your next fight?
Did you enjoy it?
It was fabulous.
It's good.
Three students from Newcastle High kept the long tradition of Newcastle surfing to the forefront with an outstanding performance in the state schools titles. Todd Parkinson, Patrick Kelly and Cameron Crisp were presented with the Eastern Zone Trophy by David Ringland, the area surfing coordinator and the man who began surfing as a sport at Newcastle High some 10 years ago. 4 times world champion Mark Richards was on hand to present the MR State Shield to the boys.
I'd like to congratulate those 3 surfers. I also wish them the best of luck when they contest the Australian School Surfing titles, which will be held in the upcoming school holidays down in Sydney. So guys, congratulations.
Todd, who got the nickname The Phantom because of his brilliant performances, Patrick and Cameron will now attempt to win the National Schools title in July. To keep their 100% record at home intact, the Knights had to meet and beat the rampaging Canberra Raiders, and they did that in fine style. With solid forward play and great moves by the rearranged backline, the Knights won the match 10-6 after leading 5-0 at half-time. Shortly after the break, the Raiders hit back with a try to ever-present John Ferguson, a passage of play winger Glenn Frendo said he could do little about.
Oh, watching that again, here we go straight away, and try.
And Ferguson's in.
No one should be able to put backspin on a ball like that one, you know. I've beaten by the bounce, but I probably could have put the first 20 in a bit quicker, I think, yeah.
And Fergie didn't make any mistake with it. He's a hard man to stop in a position like that.
He's a good footballer, great footwork, but we kept him quiet for most of the game.
With Newcastle firmly planted in the Canberra half for long stretches, it was inevitable that something would give, and Glenn Frendo had his chance to make good, and he didn't let his teammates down.
Johnson gets the ball out to Frendo, and Frendo will score. A great Newcastle Knights try.
Well, I got a few accolades, but it was Jono's try, and Sarge's go forward is just unbelievable, isn't it, you know? Well, we play behind a good pack that goes forward, and we just do the things that we need to with the ball.
Now in 6th position on the ladder, the Knights meet Premiership front-runners South Sydney on Sunday at the football stadium in what will be a tough assignment.
Well, they've, won 6 or 7 in a row, haven't they? And each one they win's a game closer to their first loss, so we'll just take that one as it comes to.
The glossy ibis were bred at the zoo and are now 6 months old and capable of fending for themselves. Taronga Zoo birdkeeper Georgina Dyson cared for the birds in their early stages and was on hand today to release the birds into the wild. Georgina says the ibis breeding program has been quite a success.
Mainly for space, I think, and because it's so nice to return birds. They actually hadn't bred for a while, and they were put into a smaller aviary, and they seemed to like the closeness, and they started nesting and laid eggs, and suddenly we've got more than we can handle.
The glossy ibis feeds by sticking its bill into the mud and sucking out insects and different plants. After a quick chase around the cage, the birds were caught and let loose. It's hoped the highly nomadic birds will join other strawneck and white ibis and make the Shortland swamps their home. However, not everyone was impressed with the new arrivals. The release of the birds doesn't end today. They will now be monitored to see if releasing zoo-bred birds is a success in Newcastle.
Hopefully I'll keep an eye on them and do some post-release studies, and with a bit of luck they'll stay around here so we can have the pleasure of watching them.
About 10,000 Northern District mine workers walked off the job at the end of last week. Today, around 2,000 of them attended a meeting at Branxton's Miller Park. The miners went out in support of colleagues at Coal and Allied's Hunter Valley Preparation Plant and No. 1 Mine and at the Mount Thorley Open Cut Mine. Coal and Allied sought and obtained a local coal authority order banning any industrial action for 3 months.
There's any number of potential disputes that could arise on a job within a 3-month period, nonetheless being safety. Now, the Coal Authority attempted to address the safety question in his decision. We don't believe that was adequate, but certainly we would find it intolerable to be in a situation where our membership couldn't take action over any issue, and that's any form of action for a period of any time, let alone 3 months.
The Coal Industry Tribunal recommended the men return to work, and at today's meeting they voted to do just that. But they're still working to have the ban order overturned. The Coal Industry Tribunal will continue a hearing tomorrow.
We're reasonably confident that we've got some compelling arguments to turn that decision around.
The Miners' Federation also wants the tribunal to decide on outstanding long service, holiday and sick leave conditions, and will campaign for equality throughout the district. And if the ban order isn't rescinded, the Federation may seek support further afield.
We've had pledges of national support from every mining district as far southwest as Broken Hill, as far north as the top of Queensland. So people see that as an attack on the award provisions. An insertion of a bans clause normally takes place by a tribunal. In this case it was put in place by a local coal authority. They see it as an attack on their award conditions nationally, and that those conditions could be applied to anybody at any time should we let them rest. So if in fact the orders weren't repealed, it could lead to a major industrial confrontation on a national basis.
Meanwhile, the Port Waratah coal loader remained idle today, further disrupting the loading of coal in the port. About 130 TWU members have been on strike since last Thursday over a redundancy package offered to 29 employees. The TWU and Port Waratah Coal Services met again today to discuss a new early retirement package, and this will be put to workers at the loader at 7:30 a.m. tomorrow. The dispute will also be dealt with in the Industrial Relations Commission in Newcastle.
Mary Fox and Alex Henderson received their awards for establishing Neighbourhood Watch in Clarencetown. In only the second award ceremony in the 21 months since the formation of the Maitland Police District, Area Commander Superintendent Rick Kane presented 19 medals for long and distinguished service. Also today, 4 merit certificates for excellence in the job.
Keep up the good work. Thank you very much.
Constable Dennis Glover and his partner, Constable Greg Fraser, were awarded for a series of enforcement nights in Cessnock. As a result of the young constable's work, street offences have been cut substantially. Peter Ryan reporting, NBN News.
Over 8,000 bowlers from around Australia have been competing in the early rounds of the singles tournament, which carries prize money of $64,000. New South Wales will field 10 bowlers in the final to be held at the Hills Club in Sydney in August. The remaining 22 competitors will come from the other states and territories. Newcastle provided 271 competitors for the national event. Sectional playoffs are being conducted at the Charlestown Club and also at the Tuggerah Lakes Club on the Central Coast. At Charlestown today, 12 bowlers set out in search of the 2 qualifying positions, and after the first day's play, champion Cohiba bowler Darby Ross leads Section 2 with a perfect record of 3 wins and 9 sets from his 3 matches. And in Section 1, Terry Foote of Uralla and Terry Harmer of Maitland City are tied on 3 wins and 6 sets apiece. The concluding 2 rounds to decide who will contest the final will be played tomorrow morning.
The report says following the appointment of a new business-orientated board of directors in February, it's now appropriate for the Water Board to become a corporate authority. This means executive salaries should be brought in line with the private sector. But the report finds that most Water Board executives are already earning the equivalent or more than they would in the private sector. The current salaries of the top 9 executives on the board are in excess of $80,000 a year. In outlining a suggested future salary package, the report shows how a base salary of $100,000 grows with various allowances, including a subsidised housing loan, to $163,000 a year. By contrast, the Prime Minister's total parliamentary income is only $147,000. The Employees' Union claims morale amongst workers is already low, and they believe any extra salaries would be borne by the public.
Well, that's something that the board would probably keep in its hidden agenda, because it obviously would not have any confidence in letting us know about exactly where they'd find that money. However, if the money was to be found through some revenue source, then our union's concerned that the public would have to pay through it either in an increased kilolitre charge for water, or some other increase, maybe another levy, which will be disguised to cover these sorts of increases.
The report says in return for higher wages, executives would not have long-term security and would have to undergo performance evaluations. Minister for the Environment Tim Moore said Premier Nick Griner's suggestion that salaries for some senior public servants be increased in line with private enterprise did not mean Hunter Water Board executives should expect to receive huge pay increases, including concessional home loans. The Hunter District Water Board refused to comment today, saying the report was confidential, but employees believe the public has a right to know, since they're the ones to foot the bill. Rebecca Skinner reporting for NBN News.
The Central Coast branch of the Smith family is feeling the brunt of the turn to welfare in its area. It is helping an average of 30 families a day in need of warm blankets, clothing and food. Central Coast manager Claire Gillespie says they have less than 20 blankets to hand out.
I think it's a particularly bad year that people just haven't got the money to go out and buy to top up their blanket supply, and other factors are coming into it, such as the high cost of the vegetables and food, and lots of things come into it. They just haven't got that spare money.
Welfare is no longer a dirty word as far as the Smith family is concerned.
It's something that could happen so quickly to so many people. One minute they've got a happy family environment and problems occur. Perhaps the husband becomes an alcoholic, or they're evicted from their house as easily as that, and I think that's a common thing that people will relate to, and their life goes upside down.
Families have been seeking help since early March due to the cold and wet weather, seriously depleting stocks before the real thrust of winter is felt.
We need to help them with food, for warm clothing, for shoes, for all those necessities. And we're not asking for help to provide any luxuries, and let me make that clear. What we need are basic necessities, just milk and bread and vegetables. We need the cash to help them survive.